October 2021, Mark Zuckerberg stood in a sterile digital void, his hands moving with a practiced robotic fluidity as he introduced the world to Meta. He wasn't just rebranding a social media company, he was attempting to colonize the future of human consciousness. With a single name change, the architect of Facebook signaled that the physical world was no longer enough. He wanted our presence, our labour, and our social lives to migrate into a proprietary virtual simulation. It was the ultimate pivot, a multi-billion-dollar gamble to escape the scandals of the present by building a digital utopia. But the utopia never arrived. Instead, Zuckerberg's dream mutated into a $46 billion burning pit that produced nothing but legless avatars, ghost towns, and corporate embarrassment. This is the story of the most expensive midlife crisis in history and the satisfying collapse of a digital empire that nobody asked for. The story of the Metaverse doesn't begin with a breakthrough in technology, but with a crisis of reputation. In the fall of 2021, the company formerly known as Facebook was drowning. The Facebook files, leaked by whistleblower Frances Hogan, had pulled back the curtain on a corporate culture that prioritized engagement over safety, ignored the mental health of teenagers, and fueled ethnic violence in developing nations. The brand was toxic. The youth were fleeing to TikTok. The old blue app had become a digital retirement home. Zuckerberg needed a distraction, something so grand and world-shifting that the public would forget the data leaks and the congressional hearings. He needed to stop being the man who broke democracy and start being the man who built the next reality. Enter Reality Labs. This was the division tasked with the impossible, making the Metaverse happen. Zuckerberg's vision was total. He imagined a persistent shared virtual space where we would attend work meetings as holograms, buy digital clothes with real money, and hang out in virtual living rooms while our physical bodies sat in lonely apartments.
He bet the entire company on the idea that people were tired of looking at screens and instead wanted to live inside them. He committed to spending $10 billion a year minimum to force this future into existence. It was a level of spending usually reserved for world wars or space programs, all directed toward a product that most people found deeply unsettling. The first cracks in the facade appeared almost immediately. While the marketing videos promised a cinematic, high-fidelity experience, the actual product, Horizon Worlds, looked like a bargain bin video game from 2006. The graphics were crude, the environments were flickering, and most infamously, the avatars didn't have legs. Zuckerberg spent tens of billions of dollars, yet his digital self looked like a Mies character with a soul-sucking stare. The internet didn't just reject the metaverse, it laughed at it. The memes were more vibrant and creative than anything Meta's engineers were actually building. In one particularly disastrous moment, Zuckerberg posted a selfie of his avatar standing in front of a digital Eiffel Tower to celebrate the launch in France. The image was so hideous, so devoid of artistic merit or technical prowess, that it became the definitive symbol of the project's failure. It was the face of a man who had more money than God, but lacked a single ounce of aesthetic taste. But the failure wasn't just visual, it was fundamental. The metaverse was built on a premise of digital scarcity that felt like a landlord's fever dream. Companies were encouraged to buy plots of land in a virtual world that by its very nature could be infinite. Investors poured millions into digital real estate, hoping to become the barons of a new frontier. They wanted to recreate the worst parts of the physical world, property taxes, rent, and advertising, in a space where those limitations shouldn't exist. It was a vision of the future designed by and for middle managers.
Zuckerberg wasn't offering a playground. He was offering a digital cubicle. He wanted to be the landlord of human interaction, taking a 47.5% cut of every digital asset sold in his realm. This wasn't about connection, it was about total enclosure. As 2022 progressed, the financial reality began to set in. Meta's stock price didn't just dip, it cratered. The company lost more than $700 billion in market value in a single year, the largest single-year drop for any American company in history. Investors who had once worshipped Zuckerberg's "move fast and break things" mantra were now begging him to stop breaking the balance sheet. They watched in horror as Reality Labs reported quarterly losses of $3 billion, then $4 billion, then $5 billion. The Metaverse was a black hole, and Zuckerberg was the one steering the ship directly into the event horizon. He remained defiant, insisting that this was a 10-year journey, a long-term play that would eventually make Meta the center of the next computing platform. The human cost of this obsession was just as stark. Internal memos leaked during this period revealed that even Meta's own employees didn't want to use the metaverse. Managers had to mandate quality time in Horizon worlds just to keep the server numbers from hitting zero. If the people building the thing found it boring and buggy, what hope was there for the general public? The world was emerging from a global pandemic, a time of forced isolation where people were desperate for physical touch, real air, and face-to-face conversation. Zuckerberg's timing couldn't have been worse. He was selling a digital cage to a world that had just escaped one. There is a particular kind of satisfaction in watching a billionaire fail when his failure is a win for humanity. The metaverse represented the final stage of surveillance capitalism, a world where your eye movements, your gait, and your private conversations in a virtual living room could be harvested for ad targeting.
By rejecting the metaverse, the public sent a clear message. Some things are not for sale. Our reality, however flawed and messy it may be, is preferable to a sanitized, corporate-approved simulation owned by a man who struggles to mimic human emotion. The final nail in the coffin came from an unexpected direction: artificial intelligence. By the start of 2023, the tech industry's collective gaze had shifted. ChatGPT had arrived, and suddenly the metaverse looked like yesterday's news. The hype cycle that Zuckerberg had tried to manufacture was hijacked by LLMs and generative AI. In a move that was as predictable as it was cynical, Zuckerberg began to pivot. The word metaverse began to disappear from his earnings calls, replaced by AI and the year of efficiency. He laid off tens of thousands of workers, the same people he had hired to build his digital dream to appease the shareholders he had alienated. Today, the metaverse exists as a skeletal remains of a grand ambition. Reality Labs continues to lose billions, but the fanfare is gone. The Quest headsets sit in junk drawers gathering dust. The digital real estate market has collapsed, leaving landowners with nothing but worthless coordinates in a vacant server. Zuckerberg has tried to rebrand again, positioning Meta as an AI-first company, hoping we would all forget the 3 years he spent trying to convince us to wear goggles to work. The downfall of the metaverse is a cautionary tale about the limits of wealth and the arrogance of Silicon Valley. It proved that you cannot iterate your way into the human soul, you cannot buy a culture, and you cannot force a revolution through sheer capital. Zuckerberg tried to build a world where he was the sun, the moon, and the gravity, but he forgot that for a world to be worth living in, it needs people, and the people chose to stay outside. This is the epitaph of a digital ghost town.
It is the story of a man who tried to own the future and realized too late that he didn't even understand the present. The metaverse didn't die because the technology wasn't ready. It died because it was a vision of the future that felt like a threat. We don't want to live in Mark Zuckerberg's head. We don't want to pay rent for pixels. We don't want a reality that can be turned off by a terms of service update. The satisfying reality of the metaverse's failure is that it reminds us that some parts of the human experience remain stubbornly, beautifully unhackable. This is the story of the day the simulation broke and we all decided to keep walking in the real world.